Alrighty, this is 30 more seconds, as this week's theme was to polish one of the games you already created, so I chose this one. I did clean up the shapes a little more than before, as they had a much larger white border around them, so I got rid of that. And I did add a wheel and a timer, which you'll see in a second. So, the wheel, which I'm going to show you right now, just needs to load, is right here. Now this wheel has a ton of options on it, which you can actually see right here. And when you spin it at the start of the round, it tells you the extra objective. And if you do it, you get 10 seconds off your time. So in this case, use 5 trapezoids in the shape. Whichever shape. It doesn't matter which one. There are 3 different ones. It's this one here, this one, and this one, which in the original video I did fill these in normally. Before we do that, I will just show the timer. Here's the timer. I did include directions for the timer over here, as there is a way to quickly start all. So instead of having to hit these 2 in unison, you can just go over here and then hit the Control All Timers button and then start all, and voila, it'll just start them all. And this same method could be used as well to reset them, as you saw a second ago. We're just gonna reset them manually really quick. So what you would do for setup is you'd split all of the shapes and give them to each player along with the boards. Once you're done with that, you'd set up the timers and spin the wheel. The wheel is spun first before the timers are started, just so you know what the bonus objective is. As you saw before, it was use 5 trapezoids, and whoever uses those trapezoids and finishes the fastest, they're the one who gets the extra time. So you're trying to multitask of, okay, here's the objective, okay, I need to put these down and I need to finish this, because if the other player finishes it, they get the bonus, not you. If the other player does not go for it, the bonus, for example, so say if it was for use a hexagon and they decided, you know what, no, I'm not going to use that, and you're the only one who use it, you would get it by default. Other than that, we're just going to spin so you can see. We'll spin again just for argument's sake here. So we have most number of pieces. So in this case, instead of trying to fill the board with as large a piece as possible, so, you know, if you use hexagons or like up here, for example, as well, the squares, the shape definitely fits, you know, a couple of squares and boom, you know, that's the end of that. But if you wanted to try to fill it with something else and try to do some shenanigans with it, in this case the squares do fit the best, as you can see. However, down here, as you could put the trapezoids in at this bottom section, or alternatively you can use these, because even though it covers just about the same space, you're using more. So I'll show you that for a second. As you can see, I used 4 trapezoids and a triangle, and that fills in this bottom. But since the objective is to use the most number of shapes possible, changing this to something else would give more shapes for the same space. As you can see, there's way more parallelograms than there were trapezoids, which would satisfy this condition better. On the flip side, if it was the opposite condition, which is use the least number of shapes, using the trapezoids would be a much better alternative. This is the second shape right here. We're just going to spin again so you can see the different outcomes. As you can see over there, there are 12. This one is use 3 triangles. Some of the objectives are to use a certain number of the shapes, not necessarily using a certain total, just a number in general, so 3 or 4 or 5. There's also one over here that you could see that's just use as many of that particular shape as you can, which obviously is varied depending on the objective. So this one here, for example, if you got use as many hexagons, probably only one hexagon could fit in here. But for this one, many more can fit. And same over here, as long as you fit them in correctly. That's why I made sure to include as to just use as many instead of use a specific number, like I did for the other objectives at the top. Just because using 5 hexagons, for example, would be impossible in all of these, if not most of them. Going back to the one we got, which was to use 3 triangles, we can put them in wherever you see fit. So if you want to put them on the sides over here, or put them in the spots that is more obvious as this nose cone, you can do that, and then you would just fill in what's left, and whoever's got it first, you are the winner. When you are done, you're supposed to click the timer that you saw earlier. That way it would note your time down and you don't have to worry about anything. Kids do have a one-off rule, which is over here. Once per game, so the entire game, so they got to choose which of these 3 rounds. If they are on the younger side, you can alternate this to just be every round they get a 15-second deduction. That way they can focus more on just doing this if this is already, challenge in itself. But the default rule is just you pick one of the rounds. Now you have to pick it on the fly because you don't have it set up somewhere. While you do have it recorded with these over here, which I'll show you. These are how you note winning. So you'd have 2 each. And once you get to the final one, that will tell you who the winner is. But if you're doing all that, you need to know which one is which of the rounds because it isn't recorded anywhere in particular in terms of the times for the rounds. So they've got to figure out on the fly just to give them a little ways of thinking, a little extra something for them. Do they want to use it on that first round where it was maybe really close, where they would win definitely that round now? Or do they want to save it and wait and use it on another one? That's up to them. The same creation mechanic that I mentioned in the previous video, where you can make as many of these as you want, these images, as I made all of these myself with the shapes. You can do the exact same with the wheel. Hence why I wrote them here, in case if you reset them, if you remove all of them, they're somewhere, just in case, so you don't have to memorize. Moving on from that, we'll do one more spin, and we'll go to the other one. As in the previous video, I did show all of the shapes filled in. Let's see what we get here. We got most number of pieces again. We'll get one of the other ones, just because we've already talked about that one. Use 2 parallelograms. So we'll take these triangles off this shape really quick, and we'll look at the last shape just for clarity. So this one right here. So you need to use at least 2 parallelograms. And we use these right here. Boom, we would satisfy the objective, and all we would need to do is finish the rest of the shape as fast as possible. Now, keep in mind, these numbers are not the maximum. So saying use 4 squares, for example, that's not your maximum. That is just the minimum you need to use. Just using them in general. That way, just in case if you wanted to use other things, or if you decide afterwards that these would fit best, go right ahead. That's another reason why this bottom one has a distinction of use as many instead of least. That way it didn't crowd the text too much there. Other than that, I will show one of these shapes. I'll show one of them filled in. We're going to use the timer mechanic, so we'll spin one more time and see what we get. Let's see. We got use the most number of pieces. All right, hold on. We're going to start the timer as well as player one. All right, my end time was about 2 minutes, and the end result is over here. A little shaky over here. It's mainly just the fact that everything can move. That's why I had mentioned it doesn't have to be perfect in terms of filling in, as long as it's like you can tell you put stuff there instead of just being completely empty. Same with over here. As you can see down here, each of these shapes is actually 2 triangles put together. So if I go like this, watch my fingers, and go like this, move this over, there we go. This would be the same sentiment. So if I replaced this parallelogram as well, my total shape count would be much, much higher versus another player who had done, say, if they put where all the triangles are besides this top one, if they were all parallelograms. Other than that, this is the revamped version of 30 More Seconds. All the pieces, more once over, and of course just to see the rules again, and I'll re-show you the wheel. Here's the wheel and the timer. With all these combined, the intent was to make something that has as much replayability as you can, since you can create as much as you want, as many different shapes as you want. You can add new rules. There was another, as other games have done, where similar to those challenge runs that people do for various games, where they can't use X, for example. They can't use the certain button or weapon or the like. I did make everything. The rulebooks, the shapes, the boards, the scoring system, all of that was me. Other than that, that wraps up this video.